Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Goodness. The world is up against a new war, which has been silently penetrating our societies and, in unfortunate circumstances, consuming lives. Mental health challenges on the rise among children and youth. Substance abuse, intoxication, and young death are on the rise. Blossoming childhood under threat. Parents are clueless. So, what is mental health? This is a broader term covering mental disorders, psychosocial disabilities, and other mental states with significant distress, impairment in functioning, or risk of self-harm. So, mental health is more than the absence of mental disorders. It exists on a complex range which is experienced differently from one person to the next, with varying degrees of difficulty and distress, and potentially very different social and clinical outcomes. In general, individual psychological and biological factors such as emotional skills, substance use, and genetics can make people more vulnerable to mental health problems. Exposure to unfavorable social, economic, geopolitical, and environmental circumstances, including poverty, violence, inequality, and environmental deprivation, also increases people's risk of experiencing mental health conditions. So here's a question: how do children get affected? For children, this can manifest during developmentally sensitive periods, especially early childhood, are very particularly detrimental. For example, harsh parenting and physical punishment is known to undermine a child's health, and bullying is a leading risk factor for mental health conditions. So let us all go a little deeper into this. For children and young adults, mental health well-being is an essential part of overall health, as a complex, interactive relationship with their physical health and their ability to succeed in school, at work, and in society. Children from low-income communities, there is a tremendous amount of unmet needs, and health disparities are particularly noticeable in those communities. Children from affluent communities, young people in affluent neighborhoods often aim to find places in high-status schools or universities. This means that affluent neighborhoods may give rise to a culture of competition with other young people who are all seeking a small number of places in whatever that they're competing for. Affluent neighborhoods may also cultivate a competition for social prestige and recognition from others. These characteristics might make young people more vulnerable to stress, low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, and harmful behaviors. Now, which leads young towards the use of drugs and intoxication and take part in property crimes, but lesser in violent crimes. They seems to be less connected to and spend less time with their parents, or that they are put under greater family pressure to achieve, or the parents could be working. So irrespective of the communities, ethnic minority children, oppressed populations such as those defined by gender identity and sexual orientation, immigration status, physical, developmental, and intellectual disabilities, chronic medical conditions all suffer from mental health issues. So structures and networks of mutual support that can look after young people and encourage mental well-being. So which structures crumble? When structures crumble, it leaves us with many questions. So it is about time for the adults in their lives to look at the matter more deeply. simply blaming it on drugs, simply blaming it on the child, simply blaming it on the changing generational requirements, simply blaming it on drug cartels, simply blaming it on governmental actions alone will not resolve the root cause. Early identification of mental health issues an advantage or does not really make any difference? I want to bring your attention to a very powerful story of a 13-year-old. Let's say his name is Chanuka. So, being physically abused by his father and often act out aggressively at school. His behavior is a natural reaction to the abuse, but his behavior may also mark the beginning of undiagnosed conduct disorder. His teachers simply see him as a troublemaker and continually punish him for his behavior. Later, Chanuka drops out of school as a teenager because he finds it harsh and welcoming environment and is anxious to leave his abusive home. However, holding down a job is difficult because Chanuka often clashes with his co-workers and supervisors due to his aggression. Chanuka has also begun to self-medicate by abusing alcohol and drugs and has been arrested a number of times for drunken disorderliness. So, by the time Chanuka finally received a proper diagnosis of his conduct disorder and substance abuse, he is in his 30s, and his mental health problems have become deeply entrenched. They will require extensive therapy, which Chanuka probably cannot afford without a job that provides adequate health insurance. Things could have been very different if Chanuka was referred to a psychologist in his early childhood who could have diagnosed him, offered effective treatment, and alerted the authorities about the abuse. The stories like Chanuka's are among us every day. Children are often considered resilient and adaptable and able to navigate difficult situations easily. However, the impact on children's emotional development can be long-lasting and complex, especially regarding the breakdown of parental relationship. Today, it is not uncommon for children to experience multiple parental partnership throughout their childhood, whether it's through divorce, separation, or the formation of blended families. Children may find themselves navigating through the challenges of having multiple parental figures in their lives. Multiple parental partnerships can create a sense of instability and uncertainty for children. This is especially true if the transition between parental figures are frequent and disruptive. So when children feel supported and loved by their parents, they are better equipped to handle the challenges of multiple parental partnership. This support can come from open communication, consistency, and stability in child's life. If properly taken care, the impacts can be in various aspects. Children may struggle to form and maintain relationship with their peers as they may feel insecure or uncertain about their family dynamics. They may be more susceptible to anxiety and despair as they may have experienced loss of parental figure in the past. This can make it difficult for children to form healthy and secure relationship with others. Increased risk of mental trauma. Children who experience multiple parental partnership may also be at increased risk for mental trauma. This can occur if the transition between the parental figures are sudden and disruptive, or there is a lack of parental support during this transition. Mental trauma can have a long-lasting effect on a child's emotional development, leading to issues such as low self-esteem, difficulty relating to emotions, and even suicidal thoughts. Now, the blended families. The family may be blended when one or both of the parents have children from a prior relationship. It also significantly impacts children's emotional development. Children may struggle with feeling of jealousy, insecurity, and confusion as they navigate through the dynamics of their new family. But strong parental support can help mitigate negative impacts. So, to avoid this, some parents stay in unhealthy marriages for years and decades. Now, will this solve the problem? In light of parental conflict, a child may become prone to anxiety, depression, discomfort, and even struggle with their relationship in the future. Depending on how severe or aggressive marital dissatisfaction or parental arguments are, it may go on to do as much damage to the child's psyche. It is important that parents know how to deal with their disagreement privately and maturely, while ensuring that the children are not affected by the same. Every child looks up to their parents for advice, guidance, and for support. Which is why, if parents reveal their most unpleasant self to their kids, it is likely to confuse them, making them uncomfortable. Parents indulging in toxic arguments, name-calling, and throwing insult at each other can give away a wrong impression to the kids, leading to emotional damage. Researchers have found that children as young as 6 months old can be negatively impacted by harsh parental arguments. Additionally, young adults up to 19 years of age can also be affected by the same. Some of the negative impact of parental conflict on kids include feeling insecure, stressed, confused about the future, and may also strain parental-child relationship. So, experts believe unresolved parental conflict can affect a child's life in a long run. The effects may linger on even in their adult life. Just like their parents, right? Just like their parents, they may find it difficult to maintain healthy relationships when they are older. While they grew up with their parents fighting with each other, they may find their aggressive nature normal and justified. Increased aggression may go to become a problem in a child's adult life. They may become more prone to misconduct and behavioral problems that may lead them to further trouble. Apart from that, children go on to have a pessimistic approach to life and a negative perception of people, and leading to impaired social life and so low self-esteem. Parents who lose their cool in front of the children must know how severely they are affecting their child's mental well-being, as parents have taught to keep their discussions private. As parents, have a think about keeping the discussions private. Avoid involving the children. Be polite and courteous so children know that shouting and screaming are not the only way to resolve issues. Communicate productively. Do not overlap each other, rather take turns to speak. Focus on finding a solution rather than revisiting the mistake. Amid all the chaos, do not neglect the children. Make sure you let child know that they are not the problem. You may ask, sir, why do we stay in an unhealthy relationship? Using the kids as an excuse as to why you are not going to split up can create a dynamic that's not good for anyone. Giving up on the relationship without ending it only deepens the wounds between you and your partner and adds to the tension and resentment that can infuse in the household, where children then live every day under the cloud of uncomfortable sadness. When all we are doing is tolerating a partner, we are modeling unhappy, tension-filled, emotionally guarded behavior that kids then internalize and carry them as they progress into an adult relationship. It can become normalized for them. The relationships are often joyless experiences where the answer to the conflict is to ignore the situation and not address it. I believe it's healthier for a child to be in a happy home with only one parent than in a two-parent home where both people are miserable. Children absorb the emotions around them like sponges. Even parents fight with their partner and even giving them each other silent treatment. Kids know it. They may not be able to articulate the tension they are feeling. However, it can penetrate the atmosphere in the household and oppressive to being able to freely express their emotions. Like the above, there are many other circumstances that causes imbalances to the mental health. So failing to act to it in a worst case scenario, ending up someone taking their own life. So suicide is the third leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. In recent time, young people death in Sri Lanka is quite noticeable. In 2024, a death of a 16-year-old student who leaped from the Lotus Tower observation desk. This tragedy was linked to a double suicide which happened in the surrounding earlier the same year. In this instance, these victims were from the same school, drummed up controversy together with concern that the apparent copycat nature of the suicides. According to psychology, suicide is definite risk factor since it can be very contagious, given the fact that the copycat suicides and imitative suicide occur mostly among adolescents and adults. There is also a phenomenon of group suicides where fans of a celebrity or say a close-knit family or a group of friends can commit simultaneous group suicides or closely linked suicides among them in terms of timing, he said. According to the suicidology, for every suicide, around 25 people make a suicide attempt. An example is what followed South Korean singer Moonbin's suicide. The K-pop star had 1 million fans in several Asian countries following Moonbin's suicide at 25. Several fans also committed suicide or committed copycat suicides. So here's a question one needs to ask. Why are we giving away the control button of our life to external people who most times we have not even met? And what is stopping us from rising above the public endorsement and reputation of others? Did you know people's opinion changes with time, circumstances, and their personal growth? So imagine we merely decide our future based on floating opinion of others. Where will our life be? Cyberbullying has been identified as one of the growing reasons as to why some young celebrities and even adolescents and some popular well-known adults are becoming victims to malicious attempts online to tarnish and discredit their hard-earned public image and reputation. And this is very prominent around the school communities and social communities. Bullying in school affects the children, especially in international schools and private schools. Who's responsible for what? Government, police force, school authorities? In Sri Lanka, the Education Ministry has no legal authority over international and private schools operating in the country. You would wonder if the police will be involved, right? In relation to the recent media briefing on the case which I mentioned about, they mentioned that they will not be involved, but they expect the relevant authorities, our school administration, should take the matter seriously. So it is almost concerning to know the private institutions are left to their own device when it comes to the student welfare. The construct of these private international institutions will always be covering their reputations and how they are perceived in the certain class of society, right? Recently, I came to know distribution of ecstasy tablets in schools, which exposed primary school children. Now, aside from investigating how these things enter our society and school system, we need to make sure that children don't fall prey. At this time, the distribution of these tablets is only known and have circulated among the top international schools in Colombo. But how much of this is a public knowledge? What if these private institutions and schools, private international school, trying to cover their reputation by not disclosing issues that fundamentally exist within the school structure and compromise the welfare of a student? So this was a message from a school teacher. You never know what they're going through, as in the children. It is easy for us bystander to say things like, oh, it must be the drugs. It's about this or it's about that. But we don't know what is going on in their minds. It's important that we always listen as teachers because we come next after the family. School is kind of second home to them. 100%. It begins where you lay your foundation. That is, the school, the place should be in place for self-expression, to talk about things that bother you and save space for children to exist. Now, not just the private or international school, even the public system is not ready to handle such catastrophic incidents, which are on the rise. So, association between screen media use and suicide risk among adolescents over 10-year period from adolescence to emerging adulthood is a topic that gets discussed in the recent times. A study has found that boys who played more video games had higher levels of cyber victimization, have something embarrassing or mean being posted online. It's at a higher risk of suicide. Boys with higher use of media apps that involve reading had higher levels of negative social media use and the highest suicide risk. Higher use of entertainment apps, social media, and increasing use of video games over time has associated with the highest suicide risk for girls. The results of this study suggest that the pattern of social media use over time, not just time spent on social media, but it's most predictive of suicide risk in the emerging adulthood. And now, how the media reports suicides are critical. They should not be sensationalized in any way. At times, newspapers and leading television channels had divulged sensitive details of the incident, including names which goes against the journalistic ethics, especially since the victim is a minor. This type of insensitive reporting actually encourages copycats, and the media should take almost care when reporting. Now, what we need to understand is that suicide is not dying. It's about stopping the pain. So when one is feeling the emotional pain intensively, it can seem unlikely that they will get through. So isn't it a time that we have to show them alternative means to exist, to address the emotional pain followed by the abandonment, depression, anxiety, and so forth? So support of mental health programs in youth, for the youth and the children, educational community, and childcare setting. This includes creating a positive, safe, and affirming educational environments, expanding programming that promotes healthy development, and providing continuum of support to meet the social, emotional, behavioral, and mental health needs of children and youth. Address the economic and social barriers that contribute to poor mental health for young people and families and caregivers. Priorities should include reducing child poverty and ensuring access to quality childcare, early childhood services, and education. Not only that, healthy foods, affordable health care, stable housing, and safe neighborhood. Encouraging children to take, physical activities, get regular exercise, and spending time outdoors rather than just keeping those gadgets in their hands and clicking their way through. Now, introducing yoga type alternative complementary interventions in the system has now become so essential than ever before. So yoga as a stream will help to alleviate symptoms of psychiatric condition, strengthen self-control and behavioral changes, improve cognitive function, refine relaxation, enhance well-being. Yoga offers a multifaceted approach towards improving mental and physical health in children and adolescents. So while we have only scratched the surface of these issues and solutions available due to the time limitation, discussion on this topic should continue. By the way, if you have any person suffering from depression or considering self-harm, if you live in Sri Lanka, just contact the 1926 National Mental Health Helpline or call 011-696666 Sri Lanka Sumitriya Hotline. But you are living overseas, and please tap into your local networks to understand where you can get some help from. So, Simply blaming it on the drug, simply blaming it on the child, simply blaming it on the changing generational requirement, simply blaming it on the drug cartels and simply blaming it on the government alone will never be a solution to the problem. Problem is far too deep, and we need to dig deep to find the solution, to move the young ones out of the current mental health pandemic. Building a better society needs many pairs of hands to work, and where we as a community have to function in a collaborative way. With that, I will leave you from this point. Look after your physical and emotional self and lead a life with purpose to find mental peace. Bye for now.